This program is powered by AIM Employers Association and Ogletree Deacons, a Feature Group USA production.
Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association. While the government is shut down, most of our focus is on Congress and those affected by funding cuts. Yet the real pressure is hitting HR. According to SHRM, a short shutdown could disrupt 25% of businesses and jeopardize 23% of their annual goals. Strap in. I'm about to get fired up on This Week at Work.
Welcome to This Week at Work, the only show to pack workplace news, practical HR solutions, and timely insights into every 30-minute episode. From the latest rulings in the courtroom to the strategies unfolding in the boardroom, and from real conversations taking place on the front lines to spotlighting what similar companies are doing about the challenges they face, This Week at Work brings you the conversations that matter most to HR professionals and business leaders like you. Brought to you by AIM Employers Association and Ogletree Deacons, live every Thursday morning. This is your opportunity to connect with their experts and ask your burning questions. So what's keeping you up at night? Let's face it together now on This Week at Work.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Burt Garland, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Phil. Doing well. Baseball season ended and the hockey season's getting ready to roll.
Yeah, it is. One season's packing up. One team is. I'll point out the St. Louis Cardinals, a wonderful AIM member, and the next AIM member, the St. Louis Blues, they're up next and they're dropping the puck tonight. So we're excited, for the success and the potential success of the Blues this year. I'm excited. I'm, as you know, a big Blues fan. I'm a big Cardinals fan, but I look forward to following their season. There's a lot of promise this year. And don't forget about the Missouri Tigers playing Alabama this week, too. Another big game.
Big game, that is for sure.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to be out at that one. I'm going to check it out. So I'm going to be there, and they're saying it's the biggest game in Faurot Field that's since like 79 or so.
I'm pulling for Bama. I mean, Missouri has had a chance to be a member, and they're not, so I'll go Roll Tide.
I don't know about that, Nick. The biggest game at Faurot Field since the 70s. My son, who's in law school right now, in 2000, I think it was 2019, his high school football team. He was the captain of that team. They won the first state championship in the school's history. I think that was the biggest game at Faurot Field, as far as I'm concerned.
I stand corrected.
Probably was. Yes, it probably was.
In the Garland household for sure.
Yes, for sure.
All right. It looks like we have our guest, Jim Plunkett, with us today, Burt.
Yes, Jim, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I always love participating in this with you guys.
Yeah, we're excited to get some news from the street there in Washington, Jim. We're going to go ahead and kick things off with Lawyer on the Clock here real quick, and then we're going to get into some details and maybe some insights from you, Jim, as to what's going on in Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Burt, what do you have for Lawyer on the Clock? Nick, pull that lever for him so he can get going.
Curious about a case that could wreck your workplace? Lucky for you, we have a lawyer on the clock.
So, Phil, the first one I want to talk about today is a case coming out of the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals. And I covered this case a couple months ago, saying there was argument at the court on this particular case. And they decided Wednesday to review its own decision. The full Eighth Circuit decided to review the decision of a panel of the Eighth Circuit affirming a win for a company against a coworker who claimed he was wrongfully fired after testing positive for THC. This case comes out of Arkansas. The employee was fired after a routine drug screening came back positive for THC. He argued the termination was unjust because his THC level was below the threshold mentioned in the company's employee manual. He also claimed that the test was picking up his use of oil, which he took to alleviate his back pain. Filed a lawsuit challenging his firing, and the federal district court granted summary judgment in the company's favor, and the Eighth Circuit upheld that, and then the Eighth Circuit decided that it's not going to review its own decision there. The court basically said that employee is an at-will employee, which allows the employer to fire an employee for good cause, no cause, or even a morally wrong cause, and that this individual had THC in his system, and you're not allowed to be quote unquote under the influence of THC in the workplace, and the company was able to fire him.
Burt, I heard you just say a whole lot of things that we could talk for 30 minutes on, but I
Sure.
want to go back to employment at will, good cause, no cause, or
Even a
morally
morally wrong cause.
Is that going to, are those three statements going to come back someday in a court ruling and say, well, we don't have to have cause, good cause, bad cause, morally wrong cause, so we're just going to fire you? Or is it going to be stuck to THC, you think?
Yeah, no, I think that this standard of at will is enshrined in the American workplace. There's only a few states that don't follow the employee at will doctrine. Almost every state follows the employee at will doctrine, and this is the standard that's there. I would add, in addition to what the court said, where it says you can terminate an employee for good cause, no cause, or even a morally wrong cause. I would say it maybe a little bit differently. You can terminate an employee for any reason, so long as it's not an illegal reason.
There you go.
And so
yeah. I just want to clear that up in
yeah.
case someone misunderstands that. We do have a lot of young listeners that haven't
Yes.
been a part of learning these lessons just yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't terminate somebody because of their protected statuses. You can't terminate somebody who's engaged in whistleblowing, somebody who's filed for workers' compensation because they filed for workers' compensation. So again, you can terminate an employee for any reason, for good cause, no cause, so long as it's not an illegal reason.
Illegal cause. Very
Yes.
good. So in short, what they've said is, yes, if you have THC in your system, you have a policy for no THC in your system as part of your drug testing policy. Follow your policy and you should be okay.
Something along those lines.
Yeah,
that's right.
And we've covered the indicia practices
That's right.
inside and out on this, but that's always a good backup as well when we're talking about impairment from that standpoint.
Exactly.
All right, what else you got, Burt?
All right, so and I'm sure we're going to talk about this in quite a bit of detail when Jim comes back on the program with us in a few minutes here, but just this week, the Senate confirmed 11 Trump nominees to the Labor Department and other employment agency roles. The Senate voted along party lines 51-47 to confirm this batch of nominees. The first one I'm just going to mention quickly because I'm sure Jim will talk about this, but Brittany Panuccio was confirmed as an EEOC commissioner, and that restores the agency to full functionality. There is now a quorum at the EEOC. Well, I guess when the government reopens, there will be a quorum at the EEOC.
Congratulations, you've been appointed. You are now laid off, yeah?
Something like that. So she's an assistant U.S. attorney in Florida, and she is now the second Republican on the commission. She joins acting chair Andrea Lucas and Democratic Commissioner Kalpana Katagal. And so with that with the quorum being restored, you can expect to see Trump's agenda at the EEOC start to be implemented. And I'll leave that for Jim to talk about. Another important appointee, Andrew Rogers, who was serving as acting general counsel at the EEOC, he was confirmed as the Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division Administrator. And the Wage and Hour Division Administrator, of course, has a lot of power at the EEOC, driving all issues related to wage and hour, which is what really affects a lot of employers in the workplace. So that's an important one. And then one more I want to mention real quickly, David Keeling was confirmed to become the Assistant Secretary of Labor for OSHA. He was previously the Director of Road and Transportation Safety at Amazon and served in numerous safety positions at UPS. So interesting to see somebody who's been an industry insider dealing with occupational safety and health issues for major corporations taking on this role.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick. Is that traditional? I must admit, I'm not familiar with the appointments of positions like that come from industry like that.
Yeah, I think that in a Republican administration, you'll see a lot of people coming from the industry, and in the Democratic administrations, you see a lot of people coming from unions.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. That makes sense. All right. Anything
Ready for
else
one?
from Burt?
Yeah, you ready for one more, Phil? This one's
All right. Last
frightening,
one. Sure.
and we'll talk about this on a subsequent show because we can go on for hours on this one. But the Senate conducted some hearings this week, really interesting stuff on AI and the potential displacement for workers. And according to a new report from Senator Bernie Sanders, he warns that something that he called "quote unquote" artificial labor could upend the economy faster than the world is prepared for. We've been talking a lot about that on the show. Fast food and customer service workers, according to Sanders, could see more than an 80% drop in their jobs, while even high-skilled jobs like accounting, software development, and nursing will also face sharp cuts. And so I sent Nick over a couple of charts from a Fortune magazine article that appeared that these are based on the government's, the committee, U.S. Senate Help Committee minority staff report. So this comes from the federal government, from the Democrat side. And what this chart shows, it's a two-page chart, and it shows the potential number of jobs replaced over the next 10 years in all kinds of fields.
Yeah.
And so you can see, leading the top right there, fast food and counter workers, 3.3 million fast food jobs to be displaced, according to this committee, over the next 10 years. And some of these numbers really are quite shocking. The overall result of this report was that nearly 100 million jobs could be eliminated over the next 10 years. Interestingly, you've got executives, according to the article, from NVIDIA, Chase, Microsoft, that have predicted that AI will result in everything from shorter traditional work weeks. And then even Bill Gates from Microsoft went further to saying humans may soon not be needed, quote, for most things, end quote. And that workers may only need to work 2 days a week within the next decade. So then, of course, that led to Bernie Sanders asking the question, what happens to the tens of millions of Americans who no longer have employment because they can't find jobs that don't exist? How do they pay for healthcare, food, housing, and the other necessities of life? So really interesting kind of dynamic that we're dealing with, and we've talked a lot about it on the show. According to the Senate Minority Report today, American workers are over 400% more productive than they were in the 1940s. And yet millions of Americans are working longer hours for lower wages than they were decades ago. A 32-hour work week with no loss in pay would reduce the stress level in our country and allow Americans to enjoy a better quality of life. But the question is will the work week shorten and people will still get paid for a full work week?
Interesting data. I mean, anytime you listen to anyone in the space of technology, they talk about the impact AI is going to have on the workforce as it relates to replacing jobs. It doesn't always take into account the creation of new industries and new jobs. But I think it's going to be a great conversation to set up next we're going to have on the program co-founder and CEO tough day. She goes by KVJ, Katherine Von Jahn, and she's an expert in the space of AI. I got a chance to meet her a few weeks ago, and she's agreed to be on the show. And she talks about the impact of some of this, as well as the technologies that she's developing to assist leaders and businesses and how they manage to be more effective as well. And even if just half of what they're predicting comes true, right? I mean, just 50% accurate, it's a massive blow to people working today and in particular jobs. So I'm going to have to strap in, as we like to say on this show, and see where this thing takes us. But stay tuned, and next week will be a really good program as we get some insights from Katherine. This is exactly what she deals with. You ready to get to our guest, Jim Plunkett, today?
I am. Is Jim ready for us?
I think I am. Yeah.
Jim always stands ready. Good morning, Jim. Welcome back to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great.
So of course,
Burt, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, of course, as our viewers know, Jim is one of my colleagues in my Ogletree's Washington D.C. office. He's the head of Ogletree's governmental affairs practice group, and he is our Washington D.C. insider. And so I mentioned on Lawyer on the Clock some of the Trump administration appointees. I'm hoping, Jim, you'll talk a little bit more about that. But of course, what I know our viewers are interested in hearing, what's going on with the government shutdown? What's the word on the street? What can you share with us?
Sure. I mean, if you're hoping for the government to reopen anytime soon, Burt, I don't think it's looking very good. Mm-hmm. The sides are dug in, right? Both parties are dug in their bargaining positions. Reminds me very much of these like high profile sport negotiations that we see with these high profile athletes who are, the team saying, we'll give you X, and they say, well, we want X plus Y, and then that's it. Where do you even negotiate? Mm-hmm. And that's what it seems like the Democrats and Republicans are like these days. The thing is, with all of these shutdowns, history shows that there's usually not a policy change. The policy change that the parties are looking to enact or use the shutdown as leverage for rarely comes to pass, right? So the last shutdown that we had was from 2018 into 2019. It was 35 days. That's the longest shutdown we've ever had. That was about more funding for the wall on the southern border. We never got that, right? A previous shutdown, Republicans shut the government down over the Affordable Care Act years ago. Well, guess what? The Affordable Care Act is playing a role in the current shutdown situation right now, right? So it's very rarely an effective policy tool, but constituents and polls and funding are powerful motivators for our legislators, and I think that's what's driving the discussions now. Some things to think about, though, Burt, some potential stress points, inflection points aren't getting their pay, right? So
yeah, that's not a good media play.
Right. That could upset the political dynamic. And of course, Republicans and Democrats all have service members in their districts, right? So that could upset things. Also, air traffic controllers, TSA guys, right? They're working without pay. If we start seeing more increases in sick days, people not showing up to work, I've already heard some anecdotal stories about that happening. If that starts putting a stressor on air travel, that could be a big thing. And then we start talking about damaging the economy in a significant way. That could be something that could cause the parties to come to the table a little bit. And then finally, the Bureau of Labor Statistics is shuttered right now. And I know they're a little bit mired in some controversy over the last couple of months, but Wall Street likes to see those numbers that BLS is putting out, right? And if a combination of, BLS, no BLS numbers, TSA, military pay, if that starts making Wall Street nervous, that and the stock market start reflecting that, that could be something else that might make the parties say, all right, this has gone on long enough. We got to figure out a way out of this.
So Jim, quick question for you. You mentioned before that sort of the big policy goals of the parties. What are the big issues right now? What are the Republicans trying to do? What are the Democrats trying to do?
So this is not like I'm not getting political here, Burt, but this is what the objectively what the debate is about. The Republicans have basically, they've said, hey, we've run out of time to fund the government. And what we need to do is just continue with the current funding levels that we've voted for in the past. We've got to continue with the funding levels, and let's buy ourselves some time. We'll continue it like around close to Thanksgiving, and then maybe Thanksgiving will be a motivator for us to go home and eat our turkey and watch the terrible Dallas Cowboys play some football. So that's what Republicans want. Democrats have said, hey, we have this healthcare crisis that's happening, that's about to happen. We need to address some of these ACA, Affordable Care Act, healthcare subsidies that are about to expire. There's some really, I think, they've got some good data on their hands, the Democrats, about what some of these cost increases might mean to particular families or groups of people. And Democrats are trying to say, like, hey, we can't wait. We can't fund the government and then have you guys promise us that we'll talk about this now. We need to talk about this right now as part of the funding deal, right? Just this morning, I'm hearing that, Democratic polling. Now, listen, Republicans probably had, I'm sure they've got their own polling too, but Democratic polling says that sort of the public is on their side, right? And when you're talking about healthcare and money in people's pockets, that can be pretty powerful. So I think both sides are feeling pretty good about their positions, which is not good if we're looking for an agreement. Republicans are like, hey, we just want to continue the status quo. What's wrong with that? Mm-hmm. And Democrats are saying, hey, we're trying to help people and put money back in their pockets and help them from, their healthcare costs exploding. What's wrong with that, right? So both parties think they're in the right here.
Got it. So, and what is, Phil, go ahead. Sorry about that.
I guess I was going to ask Jim, one of the things that we hear in the media, depending on what you're listening to as it relates to the healthcare funding, is the funding for undocumented workers or illegal immigrants.
Right.
Is that buried within this? That's part of the hang up, and maybe that's an opinion more than fact. I don't know, but I'm just curious. That's what I hear.
Yes.
Quite a bit.
That's certainly a debate that transcends this particular issue and goes into the broader immigration policy decisions that this administration has been making. I confess, Phil, that I have not gone down the rabbit hole and looked into the bill to see whether or not that's true, because this is the state of our politics, right? One side says that's a total lie. And then the other side says, no, if you look at the text, it's not a lie, right? So, and I don't know where the truth is, Phil. It's probably somewhere in between. I don't know if there is an in between on this.
Somewhere in the middle, yeah.
Right, but that's certainly a play, and if Democrats are looking to push back on the administration's immigration agenda, that certainly could be a factor in the logjam.
So another question, just as it relates to the workers who have to work or maybe are required to work without pay. Our air traffic controllers, some law enforcement, military personnel. Is it similar to a situation where you see on a strike that sometimes then it's negotiated, often like in a strike scenario, for some form of back pay or makeup pay, anything along that line? Is that traditional following a shutdown?
Yeah, there is a statute on the books as a result of the last shutdown in 2019 that says they will be made whole. Once they come back to work, they'll get all of their back pay. Republicans are trying to poke some holes into that law, as I think using that as a cudgel, as a threat to say, well, maybe not, right? Maybe we don't have to pay, the government doesn't have to pay you guys when you get back to work. But there is a law that says that they should get back pay. But it's very interesting, Phil. A lot of the agencies, like the federal courts, for instance, they've got they've been shaking the couch cushions, and they've come up with some extra money, and they say, hey, we'll be able to operate with no change in services through October 17th. Other agencies are able to, some of them are like fee funded, right? Like certain immigration agencies are funded through payments that, potential beneficiaries are making as part of these applications for immigration benefits, right? So they're able to function. So there is some sort of agency by agency functionality issues that differ, and some are able to go a longer way than others.
Okay. And then another question, maybe kind of on topic, maybe a little bit side topic, is related to the H-1B visas and the $100,000 reentry fee. Are you hearing anything about that, or the disruption or implementation of that?
Yeah, major issue for frankly, for a lot of our clients and a lot of industry groups that I talk to in Washington, D.C. There is a lawsuit that was filed, I think, late last week or maybe early this week, basically saying, hey, the H-1B program is a carefully complicated, complex program that was negotiated by Congress. Congress created the ins and the outs and the nuts and the bolts for the H-1B program, and the president can't sort of alter that program unilaterally. That's one of their changes, right? Or one of their allegations. And they also say maybe the president has this broad power to restrict certain groups from entry, but that's really a foreign policy tool, right? That tool is designed to make sure that we don't have terrorists coming into the country, right? Or foreign spies coming into the country. It's not a tool that the president is permitted to use to regulate the economy, right? So I think they have some good arguments. The question is, a lot of this impact, is surrounding petitions, and most of the petitions that we're talking about have already been filed, right? The next time we're going to see like a huge a swath of petitions filed isn't going to be until the spring of 2026, right? So the sort of immediate impact of this, it's sort of hard to figure now, because it's, for most folks, it's not really happening. The harm isn't necessarily happening now. And that could play a role in this legal challenge as well. The court could say, hey, well, you got to come back to us when you can actually demonstrate some damages here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jim, I got a question for you. What about the number 635,000 United States Postal Service employees? They compose one of the country's largest civilian federal workforces. And what's going to happen with them? And the reason I ask that is because, like with all the government employees who aren't being paid, there's a downstream effect to those employees not being paid, because they've got obligations, they've got bills to pay. What's going on with them?
Yeah, I think maybe they have to change the expression, nor rain, nor snow, nor sleet, nor government shutdown, like the mail gets delivered. So they're operating. They're one of these few agencies that they've got money coming in from a different way. They've got money coming in from the public. So they're going to operate. The other thing, too, I should mention, Phil, is that 60% of government funding, and Burt, 60% of government funding is on automatic pilot. Right? That's not even part of this. And what I'm talking about is Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, Social Security. People are still going to get their Social Security checks. All those programs are funded via separate statutes that created the programs in the first place, right? So we're not talking about any of that money, right? It's this other, the 40% that Congress is debating now. So people will still get their Social Security checks, their unemployment insurance. In fact, some federal government employees are going to be eligible for unemployment insurance, which is sort of interesting. So
I can get my unemployment insurance and keep working because I may be obligated.
Yeah. Yep. And then so I don't know the details about if there's a clawback if you're getting unemployment insurance.
I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah.
Right. And then you get your back pay. I don't know the details of that. But I do understand if you start Googling the state unemployment insurance agencies, they're putting notices out for the federal government employees. They're saying, you may be eligible, you can apply.
Sure.
But I haven't gotten that far to figure out what happens once they get their back pay, if they have to give back their unemployment insurance.
Are
one of the other
people are Congress people getting paid during this?
Yeah, so that's another thing, right? Obviously, we need the members are getting paid, right? There's some staff are getting paid, but then that money's gonna start running out a little bit for staff, and then they're gonna have to go on sort of a member by member basis. But the members do get paid, and it's on the one hand perhaps seems a little bit frustrating, but on the other hand, we do need the whole point is we need them to negotiate and figure a way out of this, and we need a piece of legislation to pass Congress. So we obviously need them there and working. So yes, they are still getting paid.
One last question, maybe to either one of you. It relates to the I-9. So the I-9 electronic filing process was made shut down, unavailable for a while. I think it's back up and running for now, they say. Any insights or guidance on that at all?
Yeah, so I know the E-Verify system.
E-Verify, yes.
E-Verify is shut down, but that doesn't absolve employers from still going through their I-9 obligations. They're still required to do all the employment verification and all of that. They've just got to do it sort of the old-fashioned way and cannot use E-Verify.
Okay, yep. There's test our abilities to do it the old-fashioned way.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
You ought to
All
be
right,
good
Jim.
at that, Phil.
Yeah. Burt, I wouldn't know how to do it. I just know how to help people do it by calling the hotline. It's been so long since I've done something like that. I would mess it up for sure.
Right.
Jim, anything else that you think is important for our audience to hear today?
One thing I would note, going back to what Phil was saying about some of these agency officials, an interesting thing to watch at the EEOC is that now that the quorum has been restored, is to watch to see how the lone Democrat responds to this, right? That's Kalpana Kotegal. She can sort of slow walk things, right? Anything they have to vote for, she might say, oh, well, I'm on vacation that week, or, I'm tied up that week, right? Maybe you're not going to get my vote. Or if she really wants to play political hardball, she could resign. And then they're back to, a quorumless EEOC.
Wow.
And I'm sure if Kotegal resigned, she would still have no problem finding employment somewhere else, as in the plaintiff's bar or in other think tanks and that sort of thing. But that could be an interesting and fun dynamic to watch, to see how she reacts to now having a functional quorum at the EEOC, and her trying to figure out ways that she can sort of block the Republicans' agenda.
Interesting. Yeah. That those seem like potential outcomes, don't they?
Yes. Yep.
All right. Burt, anything else from you today?
No, I just want to point out that Jim said it could be fun to watch.
Yeah, well, it's in his backyard, so
Exactly.
that's fun for him. For me, watching the Blues tonight is going to be fun.
There you go.
But yeah, I just want to remind our listeners, we do have CEO and co-founder of Tough Day, Katherine KVJ, AI expert, on the program next week. We're going to get back into some discussion on how AI is taking shape and talk a little bit more about some of the job displacement impacts this might have that Burt shared with us earlier on the program. Jim, as always, thank you so much for joining and updating our listeners on what's going on in Washington. Burt, as always, it's fun. Until then, let's go out and let's try and be good to someone. We'll see you next week, 7:30. Take care.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please like it, share it, and make sure it's on your calendar every week. Ask your burning questions anytime and let us know what topics you'd like us to cover. Just go to hrask.org and be sure to leave a review wherever you catch our show to help other HR pros find us as well. We'll see you next week when we discuss what's happening this week at work.